These days, it can be hard to trust the media. What's true, what's fake, and who is behind the message? I'm a freelance journalist and videographer who has spent years studying the media. Now I'm taking a look at what local, regional, and national news stories mean to us here in North Central Washington. I'm Dominick Bonny, and this is Common Sense. Hello and welcome to Common Sense. I'm Dominick Bonny, and in this episode, we're going to head down to South Wenatchee, to the Alano Club, where the local recovery community meets. For folks in recovery from serious addictions to drugs and alcohol that can destroy relationships and end lives, the Alano Club is an essential home base where this community can gather and gain strength from each other. The space and the community and the culture these folks in recovery build at the Alano Club is essential to them and their recovery. But the current Alano Club location does not meet the needs of this community. So we'll head down to South Wenatchee and learn more about that in a minute. But first, I want to tell you a story. It's a story about a man who was ahead of his time and who wanted to save lives and alleviate the suffering of women and infants for generations to come. And for his efforts, he was met with derision and contempt from his peers. His name was Ignaz Semmelweis, and you might not recognize it, but I bet you do something that he was very passionate about at least once or twice a day. At least I hope so. What might that be? Well, let me tell you. With the help of Kaylin O'Connor and James Owen Weatherall, authors of this book titled The Misinformation Age, How False Beliefs Spread, they tell the story better than I can in Chapter 2, titled Polarization and Conformity. Quote, in 1846, Ignaz Semmelweis, a Hungarian physician, took a post in the first obstetrical clinic of the Vienna hospital. He soon noticed a troubling pattern. The hospital's two clinics provided free care for poor women if they were willing to be treated by student doctors. In the first clinic, where Semmelweis was stationed, and midwives in the second. But things were not going well in the clinic. Puerperal or childbed fever was rampant, killing 10% of patients on average. Meanwhile, in the second clinic, the presumably less knowledgeable midwives were only losing 3 to 4% of their patients. Even more surprising, the death rate for women who had so-called street births on the way to the hospital was much lower than for the women who received the dubious help of the doctors in training. During the Semmelweis' first year, the clinic's reputation was so bad that his patients literally begged on their knees to be transferred to the second. Dismayed by their record and horrified by the terrible deaths these patients were enduring, Semmelweis set out to find the cause of the clinic's high fever rates. In March 1847, he had a breakthrough. A colleague died of symptoms very similar after receiving a small accidental cut during an autopsy. Semmelweis connected this incident with the fact that obstetricians in the first clinic regularly attended patients after conducting autopsies on diseased corpses. Childbed fever, he concluded, was a result of cadaverous particles transferred via the student doctor's hands. After he started requiring regular hand washing with a chlorinated solution, the clinic's death rate plummeted. Toward the end of 1847, Semmelweis and his students published their findings in several prominent medical journals. He believed his innovation would revolutionize medical practice and save the lives of countless women. But instead, his fellow physicians and principally upper class gentlemen were offended by the implication that their hands were unclean. And they questioned the scientific basis of his cadaverous particles, which did not accord with their theories of disease. Shortly thereafter, Semmelweis was replaced at the Vienna General Hospital. In his new position at a small hospital in Budapest, his methods brought the death rate from childhood fever down to less than 1%. Over the remaining 18 years of his life, Semmelweis's revolutionary techniques languished. He grew increasingly frustrated with the medical establishment and eventually suffered a nervous breakdown. He was beaten by guards at a Viennese mental hospital and died of blood poisoning 2 weeks later, at the age of 42. Semmelweis was right about the connection between autopsies and puerperal fever, and the decisions he made on this basis had meaningful consequences. He saved the lives of thousands of infants and women, but his ideas could have saved many more lives if he had been able to convince others of what he knew. In this case, although he communicated his beliefs to other scientists and provided as much evidence as they could possibly desire, his ideas were still rejected at great cost. The warrantless belief persisted that gentlemen could not communicate disease via contact, end quote. But why, other than pig-headed notions about the purity of a gentleman's hands? Well, a few pages later, the authors provide a potential explanation. Quote, "There is no doubt that Semmelweis's hand washing practice had dramatic real-world consequences, so it might seem surprising that physicians nonetheless conformed to the notions of the day rather than tried the new practice. But notice that the physicians themselves were not the ones at risk of death. Neither were their friends, relatives, or members of their social circles, as the patients in their clinics were generally poor. If the consequences of their choices were more personal, they might have ignored the reputational risks of admitting that their hands were unclean and listened to Semmelweis," end quote. See, those doctors were gentlemen, comfortably wealthy, and not related to or connected to their poverty-stricken patients in any meaningful way. If it were their wives or babies who were dying because of the cadaverous particles they refused to wash off their hands, things might have turned out differently. But they didn't, and Semmelweis went to an early grave for his efforts to save lives and warn society about the dangers of not washing hands. Such a simple thing, washing your hands, yet it's so important to limiting the spread of germs and therefore sickness and death. It seems silly now to think that doctors would scoff at the idea of washing their hands before delivering a baby or after performing an autopsy. It would seem unbelievable unless we weren't all living in a day and age when the effectiveness and safety of things like masks and vaccines are straight up rejected by some and even targeted as a danger to public health by others. We are truly living in one of the most absurd periods in history, and that's a competitive market. But now let's leave the scientific illiteracy and the breakdown of critical thinking for another episode and go down to the Alano Club in South Wenatchee and hear from a few board members about that organization.
The recovery community. I got clean 19 years ago, and this is the first place I came when I got clean. And to the community, I think it does a lot. People come here, it's a safe place to come, and they know there's no drugs involved in this place. They can talk to people, they can get literature, they can attend a meeting. The social aspect has somewhat died over the year. It's not so much. There are people that hang out once in a while before and after the meetings, but it used to be very much social. That has kind of died over the years. But I think it does the community a lot. A lot of miracles have happened here in the 20 years I've been here.
How about the rest of you? What does the Alano Club mean to you and the recovery community?
For me, it was the first place I came when I found recovery in 2016. My sister dropped me off here and said, "This is a clean and sober hangout place. You're going to find like-minded individuals that want the same goal to recover from active addiction." And to me, it's a staple to not only the recovery community, but the community as a whole. Because if you're transforming the lives of people in active addiction, you're benefiting the community in all areas.
Yeah, well said.
I think that the phone is important. There's always someone answering the phone. And it's a main place where the meetings are held. So it's a place everybody comes.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So if somebody's in crisis or somebody's saying, "Boy, I'm really struggling to not use or to not stray from this path," they can call
Yeah.
here, and there's always going to be somebody.
There's always someone answering the phone, telling them where they could go.
Okay.
The Alano, the name Alano, everybody knows the Alano. You go to different towns, and every town will have an Alano Club. We've contemplated changing the name, but then again, it would be harder for people to find us. People come from out of town, and they grab the phone, and they call the Alano Club because they know they can get information there. I was at NA area, and they were talking how they get 1 to 2 phone calls a month, and that is the entire area program. I went out and I asked Mark, who's our main volunteer. He says we get about 1 to 2 calls a day.
Wow. And how big is an area?
Area is all Central Washington. Yeah, and this building alone gets 2 to 3 calls a day, asking where's the meeting, I need help. I've come in here before, right after Mark went and got something to eat. Someone's on the phone crying. They're out of town, thought they could do it. They needed a meeting.
Yeah.
So you lock the doors, you run, you pick them up, you take them to a meeting, and do whatever you have to do.
So, how has the community grown over the years, and how, what are the limitations that you have because of your current space?
I for one, have seen that the limitations of the space have made it so that people don't want to participate in the meetings that are held here. We have quite a few members who face more issues than just their addiction, and so being in such a confined space to get the recovery that they need ends up triggering other issues for them. So they'll skip meetings here, which is sacrificing their recovery just so that they're not triggering other issues.
Wow. And like maybe worried about just how small the space is with COVID and that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is tough. I mean, how many square feet would you think we're talking about?
396, isn't that what it
Yeah.
said? I think it's 396.
And you say that, you have up to 50 people basically can be in this space.
Yeah, and sometimes even more than that.
Wow.
Sometimes there's people standing in areas, we have a meeting that's so full. And we have 3 of the meetings that can usually fill it up on any given event. We have the Monday, the Tuesday, and the Thursday.
Wow.
They usually fill these up pretty good.
And there's really no overflow space here. This is
No.
the only room.
Yeah.
There's another room upstairs.
Uh-huh.
When the COVID first started, we were, the Alano Club and the meetings are separated. They're not the same entity. We just rent to the people, and then the people running the meeting are in charge of their meeting. But we told them, if you want to start separating, you can break off with someone else and go upstairs. And it was done a few times. Sometimes it would go down, but after a while, everybody's concerns quit, and
Yeah.
they get lazy, and you know how that is.
Yeah.
Just,
It's 18, 19 months into it. It's
yeah.
yeah, I hear you. My next question.
Not only that, though, Dominic, during the heat of the pandemic, all the regular meetings that were held at churches and other organizations, the hospital had one, they had nowhere to go because people shut their doors.
Right.
And so all those meetings came here wanting to have their meeting, and we were running 2 meetings a day, sometimes 3 meetings a day in this little bitty space. And people just got to the point where they consider the space too small, and so like Patricia was saying, they just wouldn't come because of other issues associated with their health.
Stay tuned after the break for more.
Are you a take charge kind of person? Consider a career as a health unit coordinator. You'll work to keep health facilities running efficiently by coordinating medical providers, patients, and departments. The Charter College Certificate in Health Unit Coordinator program can get you up to speed on basic patient care, health records management, health and safety procedures, and medical billing. And the 10-month online program includes a computer you keep. Get started at chartercollege.edu, where we work to get you to work.
Your search for quality patio furniture with excellent customer service is over. Blue Lagoon is proud to offer only the finest outdoor furniture and accessories from some of the most renowned manufacturers in the industry. Our showroom showcases a large selection of in-stock furniture, fire pits, umbrellas, cushions, and outdoor accessories. Our in-house outdoor decor specialist is available to help you design and custom order the perfect furniture for your unique space.
At D.A. Davidson in Wenatchee, they believe your investment success begins with a personalized plan. A plan that is the roadmap you need to navigate your way to living your best years in retirement. D.A. Davidson can help you create a plan so you can take the time to enjoy the finer things in life. Let the financial advisors at D.A. Davidson help chart your retirement future today.
Our experience with NCWLIFE has been amazing.
People think television and they think it's this huge production thing. It's really expensive.
It's crazy how affordable it is. I couldn't believe it.
It's not as expensive as we thought it was going to be.
I would say I was really surprised to see that it was actually comparable to radio ads or print media.
It was really affordable.
Welcome back. Let's get back to my interview at the Alano Club.
He's like, I've got some table legs. He goes, would you come up with an idea of how to make tables so we can get people to come by? And the only thing that really sits on these tables is coffee. So I mean, they didn't need to be really big.
Right.
So I drew these up when I first got clean. Probably, I've been clean 19 years, August 31st. So I built these probably 16, 17 years ago. So it was a year or two after I got clean when he asked me to do these, and I can't believe they're still around.
Yeah, and you custom built because the space is so narrow that you can.
The space is so narrow, so I built them for Fred.
Wow.
The boots came out of Denny's.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they look familiar.
Yeah.
Huh. Wow.
And just recently we had the florals cleaned. Oh, they were black. My wife is the other key to all this. She's been working on all of our grants, and she's now, you know, if you talk about the two programs, AA is the older generation, NA is the younger generation. The money is always going to be in the older generation. So when AA left, there went our money. So I mean, we don't. You try to tell a young kid, become part of a club, and you get really no benefits other than the Wi-Fi password. but what you're doing is you're helping keep the doors open for recovery, and a lot of them don't see the benefit. They're like, I don't. And so Tina has been working her butt off doing grants and stuff, and then all of us have been doing fundraising. We just did bingo. So we're making it work. We're getting it where we're not membership funded anymore. We're basically all of us working our tail off to fund everything.
Well, that was going to be my next question: is where do the funds come from? Is it government grants, donations, membership? You know, what really makes it able for you guys to run?
It's really a combination. We have the counter out front, and that we sell snacks and coffee and drinks, and so there's money that comes in from that, and then memberships. People still do buy memberships, and there's donations from people. People will do fundraisers online, and that comes directly in online. And then we also do fundraisers, like we just did a bingo, and we don't get any government money. We're the ones doing the work to make the money.
Yeah. And what are your costs? Like, what would you say your annual, overhead? Like, what do you have to meet to make sure that you can continue to exist, roughly?
It's rent, utilities. We buy everything that we sell. We buy literature, coins. So we have to have money up front to buy those, to have on hand when people come in and want to buy a coin or a book. And to do any kind of event, we have to have money in the bank to, get it started and to throw those events.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's the future hold for the Alano Club? Are you looking for a new space? How can people help? Like, say somebody's watching this show and they have, connections in real estate, or there's a property that would work for a new Alano Club. What do you need those people to know?
Well, I think as the recovery community grows, because the opioid pandemic's constantly growing, and so with that problem, people end up getting recovery, and so the recovery community is going to constantly grow. We've already outgrown this building, and so what we need is a building that is suffice for the members that we have, and not only the members, the people that come to the meetings, and that will allow us to grow into the size of the Alano Club that we need.
Yeah. And what kind of square footage, ideal facility, what would that look like for you guys?
I think ideally we want to be able to have not only enough space for for meetings and events, but to have enough space to have an area where people can actually come and hang out. With this, with this space and with the old timers playing board games and cards was great fun in recovery. But for the younger generation, board games, just don't hit the mark when you can play games on your phone. We want to be able to have an event space that we can do karaoke and dances and just be a safe environment for people to spend time together where they're not having to worry about, what's really in this drink since I'm out to dinner with other people. So ultimately we just need more space so that we can expand, because the recovery community is always going to continue to expand, and with this building now we can't keep up.
Yeah, the whole region's growing. The population's going up, therefore,
And the opportunities are endless. I mean, somebody just posted pictures of Travs. I mean, right now all over the state, the recovery cafes are growing. So I mean, that if we could start a recovery cafe, that would also be more income. And bigger space means more events, more income. And we wouldn't have to, like our bingo, we had our bingo at Walla Walla Park, because the last time we did bingo here, we had to have people in here, people out there, and then we had to have people screaming the numbers everywhere. It's kind of hard in an area where everything's broke up.
Yeah, that does make it tough.
And then when you have to do events outside of the building, then you have to pay for that space.
Sure.
So then we're really, what's the point of even having the building when we can't even use it for our own events?
Right, yeah.
We've definitely outgrown it. And we really it'd be nice, best case scenario would be an investor to purchase a building roughly 2,500 to 3,000 square feet, and we could pay the rent on it and allow the club to grow into what the recovery community needs for an Alano Club.
Is there anything else that you think the community should know about the Alano Club, what you're trying to do here, the recovery community, and what you need? Because that's usually my last question. It's just kind of that catch-all. Is there anything we didn't cover that you want the community to know?
I think that the community needs to know that we are a group of people who are trying to make ourselves better, not only for our families, but for our community. Trying to move into a bigger space, we've run into a lot of obstacles and a lot of prejudice against the fact that we are a recovery club, where people don't want our kind hanging around their businesses. We're moms and dads and brothers and sisters, and this is a family, and we want a safe space to continue to grow as a family and to bring other people into this family to help stop what's happening, to stop the overdoses, to show people that there is another way to live, to give them hope. So I think ultimately we just want the community to know that we want to be an active part of the community and help grow this community.
Yeah, well said. I say this to a lot of people, and I repeat myself always, but some of the people on the front lines of this fight, helping advance the mission of getting people clean, getting people into recovery, are people in recovery.
Yeah.
So if you don't support them, you're not trying to help the people who they know their story. They know, you guys know what it's like, right? And who can speak better than somebody with experience.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And very few families, if any, don't have members that are in recovery.
Yeah.
Or an active addiction.
Active addiction.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or all the above.
Yeah.
One thing Todd said was that AA is the older generation's thing, but NA is the younger generation's thing. And that simple statement says so much about Americans and our drugs of choice. It's moved from alcohol to fentanyl, heroin, and meth. But now we all know that the war on drugs, like the war in Afghanistan, was a complete failure. Addiction has only grown since the war on drugs started, and there's no end in sight. According to the CDC, nearly 841,000 people have died since 1999 from a drug overdose. And in 2019 alone, nearly 71,000 Americans died of an overdose involving an opioid. That accounts for more than 70% of all the overdose deaths that year. The strategy of punishing the addict and cutting funding to common sense behavioral health programs has not worked. So maybe it's time to try something different. I hope a change will come in our national response to addiction. But on the local level, right now, the folks at the Alano Club need a new home. So if you can help make that a reality, think on it, pray on it, and ask yourself, how can I help? That's all for this episode. Join me next time as we take a look at the livestock dewormer ivermectin and ask why we have a local medical provider prescribing it to patients while Coastal Farm and Ranch is pulling it off the shelves to keep it out of the hands of people who don't intend to use it for their livestock. And if you are that medical provider, this is your last chance to respond to my interview request. So if you want your side out there, you know how to get in touch. I'm Dominick Bonny, and that's next time on Common Sense.
Sure glad we went to Les Schwab.
I'm glad the baby's still happy.
Well, I'm just glad that along with tires, Les Schwab also does brakes, alignment, and a bunch of other safety services. I mean, if we had gone to a cheap tire store instead, I'd be a doggone wreck.
My thoughts exactly.
Swing by today and get road trip ready with our always free pre-trip safety check. Les Schwab Tires, doing the right thing since 1952.
Welcome to Crunch Pack, the #1 supplier of sliced apples and a premier employer in the Wenatchee Valley. We are looking to add new members to our Crunch Pack team. We offer full-time work with great benefits in a safe environment with fantastic people. As a part of the Crunch Pack family, you'll find a home that's all about helping you thrive and succeed. Come see what Crunch Pack can do for you. Apply today at 300 Sunset Highway in Cashmere or online at crunchpack.com.
I'm here at the Discovery Center at Rocky Reach Dam, where there's a ton of cool stuff to do. You can learn how the dam harnesses the power of the Columbia, walk inside a Native American Tule Lodge, and steer clear of disaster on the Rock Island Rapids. You can check out the new fish viewing space and even stare a salmon right in the eye. Explore all this and more at Chelan County PUD's brand new Discovery Center at Rocky Reach Dam, now open year-round.
It's important to take medication as prescribed and store it in a secure place. But if you have unwanted medication, then proper disposal is important. Always check the label for disposal instructions and remove any personal information. MedProject offers safe and free options in your area to dispose of your unwanted medications. For more information about what services are available in your area, call 844-MED-PROJECT or visit medproject.org. MedProject, safe and secure.